In a trucking case, the story usually starts way before the accident. And again, it's another common misconception that happens in these cases is attorneys handling these trucking cases that aren't as familiar with the regulatory authority. They try to treat it like a regular sedan versus sedan rear end dust up at a stop sign. Whereas we get into the case and I'm looking at the day of the collision and what happened that day, but I'm also taking a very rear view mirror look back, sometimes years and years back into this driver's history and the truck company's history. But when I get a trucking case, the first thing I'm doing is I'm looking at the accident report from the day of the collision, and then the next thing I'm doing is looking for the information for the truck company. And there are basically clues in the traffic crash report that allow me to basically go to the Federal Motor Carrier Government site and start digging on that company and start looking into the driver, looking into the company, and see if they've been following and doing what they're supposed to be doing with the onboarding and hiring of that driver, the supervision of that driver, keeping up with that driver, making sure that driver is doing what he needs to do every day, and making sure they're above board on where they need to be on all these federal regulations. On top of the rules that we have to obey every day, truck drivers have a whole separate regulatory authority over them that reaches back almost to the day they walk into that truck company's office or get online to fill out an application with that truck company. Truck companies are regulated by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, and while we have all of our Ohio traffic laws that a truck driver in Ohio has to obey, they are also governed by a whole nother body of laws established by the federal government to regulate both truck drivers and truck companies. And if you're going to be basically entrusted to move an 18-wheel vehicle across the country or across the state, we're going to make sure that we're going to dig in and make sure that you're doing everything you have to do. We talked about rules of the road for anyone that's driving a car, but if the rules of the road for someone that's going to drive an 18-wheel commercial vehicle are harder. And we're going to make sure that if you're going to be entrusted to go out on our roads and move that cargo, that you're going to be following the regular rules of the road along with the whole litany of rules and responsibilities you have when you take on the responsibilities of being a commercial truck driver. If we feel like the truck company has failed in their responsibilities of how they vetted their drivers, you're not only looking at a negligence claim from the date of the collision, you're now looking at us potentially bringing a negligence claim directly against the truck company for basically what we would call negligent hiring, training, retention, and supervision practices. That now has us bringing a lawsuit for injury sustained in a collision, basically for the negligence of that driver and his driving that day, and then also saying, as I kind of said in the beginning, tying back into the story starts earlier too. Not only was the driver negligent for what he did out on the road that day to cause these injuries, we're also making the allegation that the driver should have probably never been on the road that day. And had the truck company done what they were supposed to do with their vetting practices, this driver would have never been on the road, and then this driver would have never caused the injuries to our client.